I work for Atlassian, and today I'm here to talk about one word, ResearchOps. 2 words, research operations. 3 words, operations for researchers. And this morning when I woke up, I was thinking, I could make this into 5 words and even 7 words. Things like services for researchers, or support for researchers, and various things like that. Although support for research is really 3 words if you're mathematically inclined. So the agenda today is, what is ResearchOps? I'll talk about the rise of research operations, and I'm going to talk about who are the people leading the way. And I know we've got a few in the organization. I can see Matt over there, companies leading the way. Atlassian ResearchOps team that I've been building up. Really exciting to share that news. What ResearchOps is not, and this is one of my favorite topics at the moment, and the stuff that we're grappling with as a new practice. So what is ResearchOps? Who in the audience feels that they know what research operations is? Hands higher. Okay. Not a lot of you. I've got some work to do. So here's a definition I wrote possibly about 6 months ago. And it's interesting because I look over it now and I think I obviously wasn't feeling very concise that day. Because really you can bring it down to this. ResearchOps, it provides the roles, the tools, and processes needed to support researchers. And as I've just shown you, I could really put that into 3 words, support for researchers. Here is the ResearchOps framework, which some of you will have seen. Who's seen this before? Ah, okay, cool. So probably the same people who know what ResearchOps means. It's a lot to look at on a screen. I get very chuffed when I walk into an office and I see that someone's printed it out and stuck it on their wall. It kind of fills me with a sense of pride and warmth and happiness and makes me think we should do it all over again, and then I think we don't need to. Here's a list of all the things that are really included on that framework, a lot easier for you to kind of absorb in a setting like this. And you'll see it's everything from research participant recruitment. We have Sarit from Atlassian who works on my team in the audience. She can talk to you about that. It's research library management, it's program management, it's space bookings, it's a ton of stuff. More technical things too, like delivering APIs. It's about migrating and sunsetting of tools. I've got someone on my team working just on that, on making sure that our tech stack is doing what it should do. So hopefully that's given you a better sense. It's a super quick look at it. Yesterday I ran a 1-day workshop for 6.5 hours on what is ResearchOps and what does it mean to you. There's a whole lot more on the web, more and more coming out, I hope, as we start to really, as a practice, get together and share much more and do more talks and publish much more about what we're doing and learning as we go along. So, the rise of research operations, I've sort of introduced occasionally, and it still kind of stuns me as like the queen of ResearchOps or the leader in this field, and it feels like it's been quite a journey for me as well. So 2018, right, let's get to this first. ResearchOps is kind of interesting because why now? Like, why is it this interesting conversation right now? Well, teams are getting bigger, and they're getting more sophisticated. The bigger they get, the more sophisticated they get. I don't know if anyone's read Yuval Harari's book Sapiens, and he talks about communities growing and they hit a certain point and now they need to have legislation and all sorts of things built around them that didn't need to exist before when people were just able to chat to one another and organize themselves. And this is very true for our research teams. So 7-10 years ago, you'd find one researcher sitting in the corner and they'd deliver a PDF report and that would be kind of their job. Quite lonely. Now it's very, very common to find teams of 10, 20, 30, 80 is pretty common too. I'm sure many of you would have big teams like that in the audience. I know some of you do. Up to hundreds, 300, 400 in the very, very big tech companies. And as Yuval Harari says in Sapiens, now suddenly you're not just 5 people needing to chat to one another and coordinate, you're a much bigger space, bigger organization that needs stuff around you and needs efficiencies built in. So I'd been working on operations kind of stuff since 2013. I cut my teeth at Government Digital Service, built them a lab, I built them a research panel, did all sorts of things for them in that space, but I felt super lonely. It was around 3 years of just being like, oh, am I the only person who really cares about this stuff? But I was writing blogs and kind of communicating with the world, and people were coming back to me and saying, hey, like, I'm doing this stuff too. I'm really interested as well. So I kind of thought, well, why do I keep having these conversations one? Why not make a community? A super small community, because not many of us are interested in this stuff. It's just me, and maybe someone from Etsy, and maybe someone from some other big tech company. And so I started the Slack channel, and within 2 months it was 200 people. And not just 200 kind of like, well, it's sort of another Slack, I'm dying to have another Slack. I just needed more communication and more information. But 200 people were like, oh my God, this is amazing. I really want to talk about this stuff, and this has been really bothering me. Now that community is 2,500 people, and it's kind of a year and a half later, which is quite astounding. I no longer run it because it became very heavy on the admin front, and a full-time job building up ResearchOps at Atlassian was kind of more than enough for me. But we got together as a group of people, as 200 people, and 200 enthusiastic people, and we did something very meta. We researched ourselves. We were researchers who wanted to research researchers to find out what researchers wanted from operations. Obvious, right? And we called it #WhatIsResearchOps. I was really big on that this didn't become a USA, UK, European kind of conversation, and that we were really global. And so I went shopping around the world to find other people who were as enthusiastic. And so we ended up with a spread around the world: Japan, India, Russia, South Africa. And I made some very good friends as well, which are now very personal friends around the world, and got to know a lot of people. In the end, it was 34 cities and 17 countries took part, which is quite amazing. And all of this driven by volunteer effort, just kind of the industry working kind of across companies, putting companies aside, and just saying, hey, we're an industry and this is stuff we care about. We care about what we do, and let's work together to make it better. We also ran a survey, and all in all, between workshops and surveys, we spoke to around 1,500 researchers. And that's how we got this framework together. So some of it was me on one fine day when I just moved into my new apartment in Sydney. I had no furniture, it was kind of a few rental pieces, very minimal. I thought I was a minimalist until that actually happened. And I thought, oh, shit, okay, I've kind of said we're going to make this framework, and now we've got all this data. We thought we were going to get very little data, but now we've got this ton of data, and what are we going to do? So I kind of got into Mural, and a bunch of people had done a ton of work on analysis and given me some kind of process data, and I spat this out, and it seems to have been taken quite nicely by everybody. So let's look at people leading the way. This talk is about the fact that research operations isn't just theory. It isn't just 2018 and this framework and a community that have come up with an idea. It's much more than that. So here's Airbnb, and we've got Matt in the audience, and I know a few other people from Airbnb, obviously a sponsor in San Francisco. I speak to Tim Toy quite regularly, and he's got 9 people at the moment, growing to 12, I think, in the next short while. They've been going for 2 years, and Tim's quote is, "It's challenging scaling a team with limited resources to provide comprehensive coverage to a fast-growing and fast-paced research function." That word scaling comes up time and again in research, with researchers, never mind ResearchOps. And the interesting thing is, as research scales, ResearchOps needs to scale too, and so your problem becomes our problem, as usual. We like that. We like it to be that way. Here's Deliveroo in London. They've got 3 people. It's been a team that's been going for a year. And this is Saskia, who's also become a friend of mine. We spend a lot of time as operations really kind of talking to one another. In fact, when I gave up the big ops community, I decided I still wanted community, which is why I started it in the first place. And so I started a much smaller club. I call it the Illuminati of ResearchOps. It's the Cha-Cha Club. Cha-Cha stands for cheerleaders and chums, because you definitely need cheerleaders and chums when you're working in this new emerging space. And there's no Slack, you'd be surprised to hear. And we just meet once a month. We also don't do talks to each other, we just talk to each other. I think as a complete side note, there's a lot of this kind of situation, which is great. Obviously, I wouldn't be here otherwise. Talking to people, but we don't spend a lot of time actually just talking with one another. So that's what we do. So here's Saskia, and she has built up her team to 3 people in 1 year. Her quote is really lovely, and I agree. It allows me to indulge my geeky planning spreadsheety side, as well as my people-loving supportive side. It's the best of both worlds, and it's incredibly fulfilling. Booking.com in Amsterdam, 10 people, going for 6 years. Just shows you that this is not a new discipline. It might have emerged and become a thing in 2018, but it's not new. And this is Carrie Peters, who says the spark behind scaling research operations is recognizing and communicating the need as soon as possible. The longer you take to do that, the harder it becomes to amplify the value of your research investment. So true. I recommend that as soon as you've got 5 researchers, start to think about operations. Anyone who knows is nodding their head right now, which is always validating. I have an algorithm actually now. I used to think it was 1 ops person to 10. Now that we've been running around like crazy people for the last 10 months at Atlassian, I realized that it's really 1 person to 5. Spotify New York, this is Lucy. Lucy's actually moved on from the role and into a research role. Every ops manager's worst nightmare. Please don't move. It's not as nice as they make it look. So it's been 1 person at Spotify. If you want a research ops role in New York, it's a great office. They have excellent snacks. There is a job going there as far as I know still. And she says the potential scope of research ops is vast, and therefore requires working closely with the team to understand their needs and to develop and communicate a plan of attack that is both realistic. It's worth pointing out that word realistic. Realistic to existing ops bandwidth, when you've got 1 person that's fairly limited, and as you'll see, and flexible enough to evolve with the needs of an organization. It's really a very accurate quote that from Lucy. You've seen that she's been there for a year and experienced it, and this is her war story in a short amount of words. And finally, here's Atlassian in Sydney, the team that I've built up. Atlassian's had research operations for 2 years. I've been there for 10 months, and prior to me being there, someone was running as just as 1 person. And we've now built up to 6 people, which is changing a little at the moment with strategy. I'm sure you're all kind of coming into new financial years, but we're 6 people. And my quote, I love it when I can quote myself, don't underestimate the resources you need to get the job done. So you'll see of those quotes, it's really about scale. We're in startup territory as research operations. We're always trying to do more than with what we've got, trying to stretch our resources. And it's very much around how do you scale? And some of my thinking is reading books on startups and business. How do you scale and not fall apart? How do you deliver so you can get more? But that's not a comprehensive list. These are just people that I've managed to get a quote from and get them to agree that I can talk about them on stage. Microsoft has a big team, and they've been going for 20 years with research ops specifically. LinkedIn have a team, Facebook. Google had, I know, they had 50 people working only on research participant recruitment. Just participant recruitment. Stripe Rowan has 1, she's the only one working at the moment. Dropbox has 6. HMRC and actually the Home Office, not on this list, and the Australian government have invested and are investing more and more in research operations, which is very exciting. I don't know how to say this word. If anyone does, shout it out. It's VRBO? I don't know, not sure. VBRO? How do you say it? It is VRBO. Okay, cool. There you go. You learn something every day. Workday and Indeed and more. I actually learned that Oculus have a good research ops team yesterday, and MailChimp, of course, as well. So I love to meet people who are working in the space. If you happen to be one of those people and we have not had a conversation, come find me. So let's look at the Atlassian research ops team, my team, and here's all their faces. Yesterday I ran, as I said, a 1-day workshop on research operations, and I have the squeezy chicken, if you look on Twitter you will see it, called Henrietta, and I've been told that I need to put her picture in here as part of the team. So this is a graphic of my team and the structure, particularly going into FY20. This is not necessarily, from at least my studies, unusual. A lot of the research ops teams will have a very similar structure. So we have the head of research, which in my case, very thankfully, is Lisa Reykalt. Incredible to work with. I've worked with her since 2012, actually. And very, very important to a research ops function to have a really strong research leader in place. Then there's me, the ResearchOps manager, and program manager is someone who sits side by side, and they're kind of traffic controlling and defending as well, looking for spaces and also saying there are no spaces for research projects to go in. Then we have our research and insights. That's what we call research at Atlassian, research and insights. And we have our service desk team, and actually Sarit's sitting here in the audience. She's leading on that team, and they look after research participant recruitment, a really big job. And after all sorts of other tooling requests that come through our Jira service desk. We've set up a Jira service desk that researchers and people who do research can use to submit requests to us so we can send them services and look after them. Then I have Teresa in research technology, and she's actually recently moved over from marketing tech to come and build out our tech stack for research. And she's the person looking after our massive big survey tool. I'll decline from mentioning the name, and because I could get nasty. All how the data moves from one place to the other, and how it goes and sits with the massive big set of customer data we've got, and so on and so forth. This is a full-time job. Migrating things, renewing contracts, looking after all these various things is a big job. Then we've got engagement and insight. So researchers have done all this work, and then what happens with it afterwards. There's things like that, but also branding for the team. When you're trying to build up your team in an organization, it's pretty cool to look sexy, right? Have some nice stickers, have some good brand, make your content look nice, your intranet homepage should look nice. Blogging internally and externally, these things need someone to look after them. It's a full-time job. So that's event and communication, and next to that is our digital librarian. I've just recently, someone has converted from researcher into digital librarian, so it works both ways, just be careful. I can steal researchers as well, and I do try. And I'm very excited. I've been working on library type stuff for around 6 years. I have new hypotheses at the moment about the fact that it's not a library, it's a logbook. And we're going to start experimenting with that. So I hope within a year's time that I can come back with either a massive success story or like, oh shit, I was wrong. And then I'm hoping to get in a ResearchOps coordinator who can cover all the paper cut type stuff, the procurements, the budget tracking, the space bookings, the very important stuff of cake. People need cake. I am often called Cake Ops because I spend a lot of my time ordering cake for birthdays, for first-year anniversaries, for you stubbed your toe, that's okay, we'll get a cake. It's fine. So this is the list again, the laundry list you saw earlier. If I go to here, this is really, when it was just Sarit and I, we could cover about this, and we were hot under the collars, running around like crazy trying to get this stuff done. Participant recruitment, celebrations and condolences, aka Cake Ops, vendor management, service design management, and thank you gifts for our participants. This does not look like a long list, but it is a lot of work, and that's why I said do not underestimate. Now that we're 6 people, we can do something more like this, but we're not covering all those things. And so you start to see a team of 6 sounds like it's a lot of people to do operations, but really, that's what you can cover. And if I get another couple of people in, I could start to cover those things, and I start to get a bigger picture. But there are areas, if I go back a little bit to there, you can see the plus signs there, and that means that if there are more researchers, I'm going to need to do more research recruitment. And if you're now dealing with PWDRs, or people who do research, you're going to need more recruiters as well. And if you have more coordinating to do, you'll need another coordinator. So I've put kind of plus signs into the teams where I need those to grow, and that's where we get to that ratio of 5 to 1. And so I've got an agreement with Lisa, and it's good that I'm now saying this publicly so she doesn't change her mind, that every time we get 5 researchers, we get 1 operations person so that we can actually have a life, which would be great. Okay, so one more back. Here we go. So there's this little word in the corner, ops service design. Now, so easily forgotten. And I've actually put it in as a separate line item because it's easy to forget that you've actually got to design your operations. Otherwise, all you're doing is you're moving the ton of inefficient work from the researcher to operations, and then you're just doing a ton of inefficient work again. Which, if I'm honest, is where we've kind of been for the last 10 months in a sense, because we haven't had time to design our services. And so my work as a manager is trying to carve out the time and get us in a space where we can actually design our operations service so that we are effective and efficient, and we're operationalized and not just doing all the researchers' work. It's like this distinction that I probably couldn't have gotten to unless I'd actually been running around for the last 10 months realizing we don't have time to design. And we're going to start to move into that as well in FY20. So here's my favorite part. What ResearchOps is not, I spend a lot of time ranting about this on Twitter. It is not research leadership. That's Lisa's job. And there's so many things where I just say, don't ask me, that's Lisa's job. She's the person who decides who is in the team, what skills they need, how they're going to improve their skills, where they should be going, all that kind of jazz. That's Lisa's job. What kind of research we're doing or not doing is her job. It is vital for operations to have very clear research leadership. Without that, I would be lost at sea. If Lisa changed her mind in 3 months about the fact that, I'm not saying this is our strategy, but she said we're going to focus on doing lab research, and I run around for 6 months and build labs in all our geolocations, and then she goes, you know what, actually lab research is so yesterday, we're going to do immersive research. My entire research ops strategy changes. I'm now suddenly a travel agent looking at visas and putting together field kits, as opposed to building labs in geolocations around the world. So you really need a strong research leader who knows where they're going, has a 1, 2, 3 year plan, and something that you can track against as operations. From a philosophical point of view and a methodological point of view, research strategy can shift and change. From an operational point of view, we're putting contracts in place with vendors, buying equipment, hiring people who are committing to developing skills in an area. So things can't change all the time for us. Research strategy relates to the previous point. We are not about research strategy. I respond to research strategy all the time. And I try and put processes in place to make that research strategy happen. Now, if you get annoyed with me, I want you to wave your arms at me, because it would just inspire me to be more anti. It is not researchers being more organized. And I love it that research operations can inspire researchers to be more organized, but to be honest, you're all good people. I've worked with you for years. You want to do a good job. If you were going to be more organized, you would be doing it already. You can learn from us, and we can help you. But it's unlikely with the massive amount of work you've got as researchers that you're going to suddenly find inspiration to be more organized just because we're here. Besides, I like my job and I don't want you to have it. It cannot be done by one person. I think you would have seen from the laundry list that I had and from the organization that we're building in Atlassian, or the team we're building. We don't build teams. I mean, we love teams at Atlassian. We're all about teams and openness and all of that. But at the end of the day, we're not going to build a team just because we want to have fun. I mean, that's nice too. It just cannot be done by one person. It's not physically possible. And so a researcher doing ops on the side is what I call just being more organized, right? It's akin to, you might be a wonderful home chef, a foodie. You might go home and make wonderful, incredible meals that could be in a Michelin star restaurant. It doesn't make you running a restaurant. It's a very different thing from cooking at home and running a restaurant. And this is where our conversations as operations become very different to that of researchers being more organized. I love to be shot down over this. I often come up and I sound like I've decided and I've got a serious opinion. It's not the case. I can be argued into other ways. I say that to encourage you. Because we're a new practice and we're still forming where we are. So here's the stuff we're grappling with. It's wildly underestimated. I'm going to fairly quickly go through these because I've covered a lot of these already. It's proving your worth with very little resource. It's that scaling thing. It's that startup space. There's confusion as to what it is and is not, and that's within industry, but also very much within the organization. A lot of my work is, but that's our job, and why are you doing that? Give it back here, or no, this one's not our stuff, that's there. And it is also figuring out, because we're learning, figuring out what is our stuff and what is not what isn't our stuff. Heavily reliant on clear and consistent leadership, and reliant on close collaboration across the entire organization. We need to make friends with, and I do, make good friends with estate management. I need spaces. With the legal team, I work with them all the time. With procurement, with finances, I make very good friends with them. Even with building security, if you are building labs, you need to know them, and so on and so forth. We get to know the entire organization. In terms of opportunities, we're building a practice from scratch. How super exciting. I've shown that it's not entirely from scratch because there are people who've been doing it for a long time. Not to mention medical research and research ops in those spaces. They've been around a very long time. But as a technology space, a digital space, we are building from scratch. And as part of that, we're a pretty small community. In Cha-Cha Club, there's like 15 of us. Anyone else who has a ResearchOps job title and does it full-time, get in touch. I'd love to have you on board. But it means we get to know each other very well. These people are my friends. I've gotten to know them over the last year and a half, and that loneliness that I had when I sent out that first tweet has been fully looked after, which is a very wonderful thing. Aren't you pleased? We're exploring working with other ops in the organization. Okay, fine, ResearchOps, but there's design ops, there's DevOps, fine. There's all these opsy things. Which is, people kind of like get shocked when, as someone who's like seen as the ResearchOps person, that I'm like, who cares, you know? We are delivering a service to users, and there are pathways to get there, and all of them need some kind of operational support. And I really want to work with DevOps and design ops to understand what is that full pipeline, and how do we build something that is going from, we did some research, and then we did some design, and then we developed something, and now here we are. We centralize the research effort and costs. A sort of quick point is, it's interesting, you start to centralize what is costing money anyway. It's not you necessarily doing more research, possibly, but not necessarily, and it can be in the hundreds of thousands a year. And that's very interesting from an executive point of view, where everyone's like, oh, we're just doing some research, and now it's like, holy shit, it's costing a lot of money. Maybe don't be so close to customers all the time, like just a little bit, like skillfully. Only people who are skilled should be close to them. I think it's a very interesting conversation for the next year or so. So my last call to you is help your researchers focus on research. You might be thinking this ops thing seems like it's an expensive extra effort. They are making the effort anyway. Help them do what they do best. Not every researcher is an excellent travel agent, as well as an excellent recruiter, and so on and so forth. They don't all know about governance, and they don't all know about GDPR and legal and procurement, and shouldn't have to learn all those things all the time to get the job done. As I said, one ops person per 5 researchers is what will get you going. I suggest that when you've got 5 researchers or even 4 researchers, look at getting that first ops person in. Stay connected with me. Here's a variety of ways to do that. I do a lot of work with Rosenfeld Media, Design Ops Community. There'll be a lot of speakers from Cha-Cha Club and from elsewhere coming in to do talks on what we're actually doing in this space. And thank you very much.